First off, Aaron Rodgers has been here for a cup of coffee. He's been here for one game. Now he's going to tell the Jet fan who has been going out to the Meadowlands and to Shea Stadium for 50 years, spending a fortune on PSLs, dealing with 9 hours of traffic and all the nonsense you got to deal with when you go to a Sunday football game. Now he's going to tell the Jet fan what they can and cannot do about jumping off the bandwagon. Aaron, calm down. The Jets haven't won since 1969. That's number one. Number two, and I made this comment yesterday, I'm going to make it to Mr. Saturday and the great Stevie A. Smith and you. Let me get this straight. The Jets, who have not played a significant football game in a year, okay? Everybody was all hyped up. All I heard about was they had a great camp. Rodgers was this defense is that. Who needs Hassan Reddick? That's all I heard about for 4 months.
Yeah.
Then they go out to San Francisco with our buddies Buck and Aikman, and I got something about Buck a little later on in the show. They go out to San Francisco against Buck and Aikman, all right, and they lay an absolute freaking egg. They don't show up. Their defense was awful. Buchanan could have scored against them defensively. Their defense was awful.
Relax.
They couldn't, not relax. Their defense was awful. They were too conservative offensively early in the first 2 or 3 drives, running the ball first and second down. I mean, the Niners didn't have Trent Williams. He had a lead because of an IV, for crying out loud. Ayuk is terrible, dropping touchdown passes, and McCaffrey didn't even play. Think about it for a minute. And by the way, Shanahan's got to answer to this. How in the world did the running back say, hey, I knew Friday I was going to play, and then Shanahan says, well, that's not true. Well, hold on now. What is it? How about if somebody wanted to go out there and take McCaffrey with their fantasy team and couldn't do it because they didn't know he was playing? And the boys got to look into that, for crying out loud. But this is more about the Jets. This is a disgrace. This is terrible. I know it's the first game in San Francisco and everything else. You got to play better than that. I mean, I went to bed at 7.5 minutes to go to read about Kent State, for crying out loud, in 1970, and you book out. Read it Saturday. That's what I was doing. I mean, this is ridiculous. That performance by the defense especially. I'm not even going to kill Rodgers. Now, he can't move. He can't move. He's very nervous about this Achilles. He's going to be a sitting duck back there all year long. Jeff, he can't move. He's nervous about these Achilles. He can't do anything. Hackett isn't freaking Bill Walsh. And Salah. One thing about Salah, okay? Let me get to...
Okay, go. Jesus.
One thing about... I mean,
oh, my goodness.
How about Salah? Let me get this straight. Salah, who has done nothing for 3 years. Who is supposedly a defensive guru.
I feel like I just got bit by the dog.
He's got 3 months to figure out something against Shanahan, and Purdy had all day. They ran for 147 yards, and they had 3 guys out Saturday, for crying out loud. I mean, the Jet defense, can you try? Where is the sense of urgency? This is the Niners on Monday night, ABC, first game of the year. You've done nothing in a season, and all of a sudden you lay an egg like that? And I understand it's the first game. But that was an awful, awful, awful performance. And then I got to listen to Rodgers tell me, well, if you jump off the bandwagon, you're not coming back on. Aaron, you played 1 game. Go back to Green Bay. You played 1 game.
Whoa.
Don't start telling the Jet fan who has been sitting there since Namath.
Okay.
All right? Richard Todd and Matt Robinson, all these old quarterbacks who stunk. And they sat there and watched nothing. You're going to tell the Jet fan what they should and should not do? Enough already. That was a disgrace.
Okay, can I ask you one question?
And I did bet him.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. That's what I wanted to ask you. Did the Jets involve any of your bets?
Well, the season bet. I told you I loved them in the season bet.
Loved it.
I mean, so
Over
that's
10.
what this
You
is
did too. You were sitting here last week telling me a great bet.
I agree.
So that's really what this is all about.
It.
That and your pride and ego.
I still like it.
Because you were waving the torch all summer long. The Jets are where it's at.
He was.
Stephen A.
Let's move this along because Doggy has lost his damn mind. First of all, a couple of things. Number one, Aaron Rodgers, he can say what he wants because the reality of the situation is that he's not coming to a situation that was ready-made. The reality is that the Jets have stunk for decades. You brought up Richard Todd. Let's not forget Ken O'Brien, who they drafted instead of Dan Marino back in 1983. Let's not forget that, okay? They've made a lot of horrid picks throughout the years in terms of the Jets organization. Robert Saleh, I have no problem with your position whatsoever, you getting on him. I said this yesterday, Doggy, and I'll say it right in front of you and Jeff Saturday. He's on the clock. He's in a world of trouble. We know their offense has been anemic. We know they've been pedestrian. We know they've been pretty pathetic. But we've attributed to the fact that they had Zach Wilson as their quarterback, okay? They didn't really have much to work with. So we understood that. They might have had a running game. They had an all-world wide receiver in Garrett Wilson, okay? But you didn't have an offensive line, and you certainly didn't have a quarterback. So that put y'all really, really behind the 8 ball. But we always leaned on the Jets in terms of hope over the last 3 years because this man, who's the former defensive coordinator in San Francisco, that's why he got the head coaching job because of the stellar job he did as a DC. This man comes here, and on Monday night, the Jets defense stinks up the joint. 38 minutes time of possession. They had more time of possession by 17 minutes than the New York Jets. You couldn't get them off the field as a defense. And they didn't even have Christian McCaffrey available to them. They had somebody else. And so when you look at this cat Mason and how he's running roughshod all over them, what the hell was that about? You didn't sign Hassan Reddick. That's about Joe Douglas and the organization. You traded for him. You knew good and damn well he was expecting a new deal. You knew that. That's why there was an issue with the Eagles. You acquired him anyway. You've done nothing to get that done, trying to play hardball when you know you lost your edge rusher in Huff to the Philadelphia Eagles, by the way. He's gone. So he's gone. You've got to sign Reddick, and you don't even sign him. So you put your defense behind the 8 ball, and you're without your lead, your premier edge rusher. Then we get to the rest of the defense, and you've got San Francisco running the football. You can't get them off the field. You can't get a stop, all right? I don't want to hear anything from Robert Saleh. This man is 2-8 as a head coach in the month of September as the head coach of the New York Jets. They can't afford slow starts. You look at the power in the AFC. What have we been talking about, Jeff Saturday? Doggy? Buffalo? Miami? Baltimore? Cincinnati? Okay, we were talking about Cleveland until this past Sunday against Dallas. We certainly have been talking about the Houston Texans. You can't ignore the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Indianapolis Colts. You certainly have to take into consideration the 2-time reigning defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Jim Harbaugh is in Los Angeles now with the Chargers. You've got a plethora of teams within the AFC, and here goes Robert Saleh. I know we're going to get this fixed. We ain't worried about that at all. You better damn well be worried. Because offensively, all you've got is Rodgers. Because Nathaniel Hackett shouldn't be your offensive coordinator. And obviously, you don't seem to know much about offense your damn self. And so I think that the Jets looked horrid. Doggy's right overall, but not about Rodgers and a culprit. He came back. He'll get it together. He's Aaron Rodgers. The issue is your head coach, your offensive coordinator, your lack of personnel in that regard, and the fact that the defense that you're supposed to oversee couldn't stop a cold Monday night. That's the damn problem.
Before we hear from the Super Bowl champ, Jeff, I just want to say one thing really quickly that I found very telling that Robert Saleh omitted in that sound. Did you hear, we'll get the defense together? There was no mention of the offense. He just strictly said, I know we'll get the defense fixed.
He knows that's on Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, they will be just fine. Everybody, Dog especially, got to pump the brakes a little bit. They got outclassed when they went to San Fran. I think when you think about what the expectations you may have had in week 1 or for the entirety of the season was special, and they still might get there. I do believe Robert Saleh will get this defense back to where they did. Shanahan always beats the teams or the coordinators that he's had or that are now head coaches. He had an entire offseason to script these guys. They scripted it to perfection. Their offensive line played better than the Jets' defensive line. Their defensive line played better than the Jets' offensive line. The Jets have a bunch of new starters on their offensive line. Hall fumbles the ball early. They can't get out of their own way. They convert a few third downs, and they can't find the way. And to your point, Stephen A., the 49ers, they can't get the 49ers off the field. A lot of that, though, it wasn't like a physical handling, although they physically beat them up. A ton of it was scheme and design. There were some very, very easy runs for the San Francisco 49ers because of the way that Shanahan scripted. Use check, running down the side. 2 plays before, Aikman's talking about it on air that he's running. They didn't see it. They didn't coach it well. They didn't play well. Aaron said all of those things. But to act like this team is not going to press in the AFC East, I think is an overstatement off of one game. And by the way, the 49ers could arguably be the best team or might be the best team in the NFC right now you have the Lions, you have them, you have the Eagles. Those are all three really good NFC teams, but the 49ers looked really good in week 1. That is not an indictment on the Jets. Should they have played better? For sure. But is their season a wash now because they didn't play or they got beat by a really good team? No. I say pump the brakes. This is still a good team. Doggy, they have improved offensive line-wise. They will get better. They haven't even played together yet. They have to find their way, but they have a schedule that's favorable to them. You and I both do that. That's why we bet the long term on them.
That's a good point.
And did you expect? Okay, now I picked them because I was emotional about them. I picked them in the game, so I'll admit that. So my loss was there. But I'm not writing their season off because they played bad against San Francisco.
Jeff, when you walk out of that game and your big highlight is Alan Lazard played halfway decent, you're in big trouble.
Well, he dropped one.
Hey, you caught a touchdown pass.
Right.
He played decently.
It is week 1 across the country.
Guys,
Zone.
they haven't played a football game in a year. This is a huge Monday night encounter.
Hasn't played in 2 years.
He wasn't the problem, though, Jeff.
Rusty?
The defense was terrible.
Well, their defense was bad.
awful.
I agree.
You just heard Stevie, the 39 minutes of ball possession. Now they didn't show up.
Okay, but
what's the excuse?
You talked about his, or Stephen A. talked about his record in 2 years. That's what Zach Wilson as well. You're not going to win a lot of games with Zach Wilson as your starting quarterback. Their defense kept them in all of a sudden, Saleh didn't forget how to coach defense. Now,
when I'm going to bed.
Hold on, but Hassan Reddick, let me just say this. Hassan Reddick's situation is bad. You can't bring that guy in and let go of Huff
so many people.
and 2 other guys internally. I will say that's a problem.